check their cell phones and make sure that they're off, that would be great. My name is Molly Anderson, and on behalf of the Atheneum Board of Trustees and as Executive Director, I want to welcome you to one of the most anticipated parts of our dance festival is the lecture demonstration led by our very gifted artistic director, Tyler Angle. Through the generosity of our corporate sponsor, Northern Trust, and many of our individual sponsors that I see here this afternoon, it's possible for us to raise very needed funds so that the Atheneum, the public library, can provide more than 800 programs throughout the year to our community. And this afternoon's event is very much in line with the kind of high-quality educational experience that we think is so important to bring to this island. So please join me in welcoming Tyler Angle and the Dance Festival Company.
And our wonderful pianist, Susan Walters. I'll also introduce everybody now. We have on viola, Ija. Lydia Han is our first violinist. Meta Weiss on the cello. And Siwoo Kim on our second violin. I'm super excited that this year we can actually have so many musicians here. I think it adds such an incredible, the whole thing's better. The sound is better in the house listening to live music, the energy is better, and also, I mean, for those people that are going to be sitting right here, we're getting sort of an immediate response to the music, more immediate than even from the dancers, watching these musicians, how they move, how the music moves them. So thank you all for being here. Happy about that. So basically right now I'm just going to sort of walk you through the program. I was going to start by telling you my goals for the talk, but then I thought maybe don't do that because what if I don't meet some or if I get some others, and I want to think that I had maybe planned it to be that way the whole time. So this year we're opening with a work for solo piano. It's Bach's second partita in C minor. And this is one of those things that it's like a pillar of Western thought. He wrote these 6 partitas separately and then combined them all and they became his Opus 1. So it's kind of fitting that we're starting with, you know, Bach's Opus 1 for the program. And also, I was looking at an old manuscript of the score that I had earlier today, and he actually dedicated the music, he wrote himself, dedicated to music lovers for the delight of their spirits. I thought that's kind of exceptional. And I think what's interesting about this piece, which was choreographed by Emery Leckrone on Tess and myself, at least the first partita, the Sinfonia, and then the fugue after, was choreographed on Teresa Reichland and myself. And then she was approached by the Guggenheim Museum to do a sort of compare and contrast between classical choreography and contemporary choreography. So she took this piece and filled the entire way through, did all of the movements, which lasts about 20 minutes. And this was for 4 dancers, Tess, myself, Stella Abrera, and Stella Abrera-Radetsky, excuse me, and Alex Moody. And we danced the entire 20-minute piece. And then the Guggenheim, the second half, which was the same music, played again, was danced by 6 contemporary dancers, a complete reimagining of the same piece of music. Tonight you'll only be seeing the classical section. What is interesting to me about this piece of music, and when Emery told me that she was using this, I was kind of like, because it really is, it's serious stuff. It's a masterpiece. I mean, we're hearing God's voice through this music, and it starts in a very formal manner. It's sort of, you know, it's French in its style, and it seems to me like I'd written down all of these words. It's formal, it's sort of punctilious, the structure is very absolute, and to me, the entire thing is about, making statements. And that's also true for the second section of this piece of music, is an old Baroque dance form called an allemande. And it's the kind of thing that really, again, sorry, so much research. I mean, I could talk for hours about this stuff, but I won't. There was a German musicologist that his name was, I think it's Alex something Walter, and he had a musical lexicon, and he said that this specific dance must be danced in a very grave and ceremonious manner. And what was funny to me is that Emery's choreography, even though I don't think she was familiar with the Baroque dance form, in a way, because of the music, mimicked the Baroque dance form. Susan, can you just play the very beginning of this? So this is the first kind of very grave French-sounding part that's Tess and Mai's pas de deux. Now can you move on to Stella and Alex? Maybe give us the first few bars of that. This is the allemande. Alex and Stella, can you join me out here? So actually what the allemande would have looked like back in the day is that we each, I know, bear with me here, we would both be standing together for the first bit of music and we would bow for 8 counts. And then the female would actually start, it would just like go like this. She's gonna go 8 counts around like this. And then I'm starting, and I would do the exact same thing for 8 counts. And then we start turning around together for another 8 counts. And it's funny because this, in Emery's choreography, I mean this is like the actual Baroque dance form is what that was right there. Emery's choreography starts with a solo for Stella. And after I think, are we coming to the full repeat that Alex comes out? And then Alex comes out and they start doing what seems to me to be a very formal dance in the same way as the Baroque form. It's very sort of, it's away from one another, it's bowing, it's not close, it's not tactile in its own way, it's very sort of, we're seeing the remove between 2 people. So can we see actually, do you want a little before? Do you want the end of your solo? Thank you. Thank you, Susan. So maybe that's what struck me. There was a lot of, I just thought it was funny, and I didn't know the form myself until earlier this week when I was looking in books to try to figure out what an allemande actually was. What did these people do? And there was a lot of turning together and turning away that seemed to me to be the same. Thank you very much. Oh wait, no, I lied. Come back. wanted to kind of touch on, just because we have so much live music, is each choreographer's different relationship with their particular score. And I don't know whether you noticed in this that we were seeing, to my eye, someone who's working in a sort of, in a balletic vocabulary, with a balletic vocabulary, but not in a classical form. I mean, she's breaking, you know, you're doing things here that you would never do in Swanvik or something like that. And also, she's not necessarily trying to show us the musical lines, but we're more dancing with I think, the meter. It's like the dance form where it's something that we're being accompanied, or something that's accompanying us when we're dancing. I find that this is the same. Tess, can you come out here? In the last movement of this work, and this is the only one of the partitas that Bach wrote, instead of a gigue at the end, he did a capriccio, which I have no idea why, we can't ask him. But it's the kind of thing to me that it's very complicated and it's very serious, and unlike, do you know any, can you sort of give us an idea of a gigue that would be?
Here's a G from the G major.
So this is, no, thank you very much. She's just pulling this out of her head. So that was the gigue from the G major. And we get the feel. I mean, you can almost see someone doing a little happy dance around this. But the second partita ends with a capriccio, which, if Susan, you can play the beginning of, has a completely different sound. Thank you. It's like, I don't know if any of you have ever asked a dancer how they count this music. It's like we usually count things in eighths. And so if you ask someone to start counting that, you'd almost not ever know where the one was. If we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's fairly straightforward. But then Bach all of a sudden starts throwing things in the middle of bars, and we're being thrown all over the place. For the complicated music, do you want to start from the... Forgive me, I'm going to try to do this with my mic. But I think this was a smart move on Emery's part, as opposed to really trying to get into the nitty-gritty, as opposed to trying to sort of show us the complexity of what Bach was writing in the Capriccio. Again, it's like I'm finding that she's doing something with the meter. So your ear gets to hear music, and your ear gets to be the sort of complex sensory outlet, whereas your eye gets to be a simplified sensory outlet. So maybe if we can just get the very last bit of the rondo, and we'll do, you know, just the first beginning of the Capriccio. And again, right with the meter. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you very much. Do you notice? Thanks very much. You guys are done. So again, we have this complex music. I don't know, it'd probably take me like a month to learn the first 4 bars of that, and we've been playing it very slowly. But again, it's like, you see the girls, they've started, and they're just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. I mean, there's rarely even syncopation. That sort of happens later. But it's one way in which a choreographer can sort of, it's one way in which a choreographer hears music and puts it down to dance. Moving on to the second way. I find that when I'm trying to put a program together like this, I'm also thinking, especially with live musicians, a lot about how the music goes together and what the contrasting points are. Not really the nitty-gritty, like, you know, making sure that all the keys are in line or things like that, but more with the feel of the music and getting contrasting textures. The Bach piece is very unrelenting. It's very, I mean, even though this shading, I find it to be, you know, it's black and white and cold in a way. And that is reflected in the first ballet. I mean, if you all should come to the performance. You can come to both too, it's live theater, so it'll probably be different each night. But the costumes for the first piece are white, and it's white and gray, and it's sort of shades of that. And then I thought to move on to something immediately from the very beginning for the second piece should be absolutely different. Different in texture, different in shade, different in costume. And so we're moving on to the intermezzo from Brahms' Piano Quartet in G minor. I knew that without asking. Susan, did you know that Clara Schumann she played the premiere of this in Vienna?
I forgot that.
Yeah. This is the famous composer Robert Schumann, his wife Clara Schumann, who's sort of like an unspoken patron saint of Susan and I. We like her. She was like the only pianist in her day who could go toe-to-toe with Franz Liszt in a salon setting, which is pretty exceptional. But immediately, actually, let's hear the beginning of this, and you can immediately see from the Bach how different this sounds. So immediately, I mean, there's texture, there's shade. It's like, oh God, you're going to get something highly romantic that's about to come out. I mean, this is what I'm hearing. Also, I love how it starts with the cello. What is that? What is that called technically? Like a compound triple meter or something? Yeah. Basically, what that means is there are 3 beats per measure. And each of those beats is subdivided into little triplets. So that's what you're hearing with the cello. You're hearing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which sort of, I mean, it's like perpetual movement. You get a little bit like, I don't know if everything's going to turn out well. I don't know where this is going. It's a little unsure. And I think what's amazing is, and what you'll hear as the piece progresses, is that sort of unease is then coupled with incredibly lush melodies that aren't tied directly to the bar, but range over several bars. I mean, he's giving us these melodic lines later on that really flow. And if I could have the cast of Brahms Schoenberg Quartet. We have Lydia Wellington, Indiana Woodward, and Emily Garrity, or 3 wonderful Quartet ballet ladies. And I want you to look for the difference. We're just going to see the beginning of the ballet, but you can watch the 3 ladies when they start. It's really, we're getting the idea of the cello, we're getting the idea of this triple compound meter, or compound triple meter. We're getting this idea of constant movement, of a step on every beat, of everybody running around. And then, unmistakably, you'll see the principal couple sort of sweeps in and immediately starts on the very opposite end of things, dancing only on this melodic measure that goes far and above what the particular bars are doing. Can you see her from the beginning? applause, because that's fiendishly difficult. Their hearts are beating right now. I loved it actually because when we came here and we were doing a rehearsal with the quartet for the first time, and Sterling, she came running up after she lands this, and she came to do these falls at the end when the music came, and I just saw, it's like her eyes rolled up, and she went somewhere else because the music is so exceptional at that point. But did you notice the difference? You see the girls starting out and they're doing all these little things. I mean, they're on point too, so that's also, like, you're watching, like, wow, they're like on their toes, hopping around, running around the stage, and even the way they exit before the principal couple comes on, where they all run in from different corners, they swoop around and then they exit, not from where they came. I mean, it's like the coming storm is what they are, basically. I had something that I wanted to ask you, but I don't remember what it was. It was about those falls. When you, actually, no, it's about the fall. So, can you demonstrate that, actually? We're moving back to Hal now. I mean, far be it from me to talk about how Balanchine related to music. He was a far better musician, pianist than I was, obviously a brilliant choreographer, but I'm going to attempt it. To me, watching a Balanchine ballet, and I'm sure that you both agree, it's, you watch the dancing, and then you see things in the music. I mean, well, that's the phrase, hear the music, see the dance, or no, see the music?
Hear the music, see the music.
See the music. I don't know. Well, I'll look it up and I'll get it for you at the end. But he really does. I mean, we see syncopation, we see particular notes. We start to sort of get into the nitty-gritty of the bars, which is hard to do because this fall, can you show us ones without the music? He comes in at the very last minute and she switches, and right before she's about to fall, this leg comes forward like that. Do you know where that happens? You know where that happens, right? Can we do whatever letter you have right before that, or an easy mark? And just, can you show us one more time? Jared, sorry. It's like my older brother. I'm making him do a lot of really hard things. Thank you. You notice that she's waiting the whole time. So we have a dress rehearsal after this too, my apologies. She's waiting the entire length of the musical phrase, and then the very last sort of violin bow, she's putting that foot down each time. It's incredible. Thank you very much. Moving on. So romantic in a very different way. We have, finishing the first half of the program, we have Flower Festival, which is a ballet that Auguste Bournonville choreographed in 1850, the 1850s, I'm not sure the exact date, at his in his native country at the Royal Danish Ballet. And the Bournonville technique is something to me, we have a very long tradition of Danes and Americans at the New York City Ballet. I mean, I work for a Dane, and we were taught this in school. Stanley Williams, who was a Danish teacher, even though I never had him, taught at the school for years, and sort of the ideas behind it, the ideas of the musicality, the ideas of the kind of clean and quick batterie, which is very small jumps with lots of beating of the legs, is maintained in our tradition. And in a way, I find that it's a similar aesthetic, or watching his choreography, it's a similar aesthetic to, well, no, the aesthetic is not the same, but I think the idea is the same, that Balanchine is a person who was involved with the steps and wanted to see steps and didn't necessarily need to, you know, wow or go with any sort of larger picture. He was really interested in what the bodies were doing, and I think in the same way, Bournonville, when you're watching this, as opposed to some classical ballets, which are only about, you know, have the guy do like 34 enormous jumps, have the girl do 165 fouettes, where we're seeing sort of sheer physical acts. I think with the Bournonville, we're looking at someone who was really involved with sort of the machinery of the body and how that worked with the music. So that's the interesting technical half of it. Moving completely away from the Brahms, and I don't know what you thought about that couple. I mean, I don't even know, I was trying to think of an example, like a real life example of who I thought that couple would be, but I couldn't really come up with one. It's so passionate, it's like they're having a dream. It's almost like they're having a nightmare about one another that they are glad to be having. I mean, they're just so swept up, it's like, it's just incredible. Completely different is the pas de deux from Flower Festival, which we'll see the beginning of. We have James Whiteside and Isabel Boylston from the American Ballet Theatre. They recently promoted and they recently married Isabel Boylston. Congratulations on both counts. So I was looking this up as well, and there's a story that actually goes along with this particular pas de deux that I didn't know, from a collection of short stories by Alexandre Dumas. And it's the story of Rosa and Paolo, and I mean, I knew that, but then I was looking up on Wikipedia and said that it was a story about robbers. I couldn't find anything to corroborate that. I went everywhere, archive.org. I even found a manuscript of the book itself, so more research, and I'll tell you if they're actually stealing things from one another later. But we get a very charming, in the beginning, before all of the really intense, watch for how clean their footwork is in the performances. We're just marking now because it's the lecture demonstration. But in the beginning of the ballet, we see a lot of mime that we haven't seen on the program yet. We see a very young love. I think both of them are in their 20s. They're sort of flirtatious. They're not comfortable with one another. They're pushing bounds a little bit. So let's take a look. And for me, this is like the complete opposite to the Brahms. That's it. I mean, and musically too. You can't get any different. This is like a walk in the park. Pirouettes always go really well when your voice is going like this. So you see, exactly. So you see in the beginning, you see mime, you see something, all things that to me seem very old world ballet, sort of antiquated. But then all of a sudden, even in the beginning, you start to see things that you don't see in a lot of the other classical things, syncopations and small movements. So when she has these three emboîtés, She goes 1, 2, 3, she waits, and then she does a tiny little, what we call a ballet, and she does a bigger jump there, which, I mean, doing the syncopated 3 jumps before in the small ballet actually gives the illusion that this last jump is much bigger or lighter than it otherwise would be. And then we see, I don't know if you noticed at the end of James' sort of beginning, unlike a lot of classical pas de deux as well, that just start with the adagio. This is like a, hello, how are you? Would you like to dance with me? And at the end of James' little hello, how are you sort of section, the tempo actually speeds up. He's down in the front doing bigger jumps, and all of a sudden at the end, and watch for this tomorrow night, make sure that he stays like with the music, he starts to do these glissades backs and these jetés, and the tempo's going faster, 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 and he ends with these pirouettes and stops on a dime, which he's a pro, so he will. Would you mind showing a little bit of the pas de deux too? How long is the track?
Yeah, maybe go a minute.
This is why live music is always better. So cute and antiquated, but then at the end, all of a sudden you get a really big. People don't do that, but Porneville did. Thank you. So this is a great, I mean, to me this is again a great example of these feet and legs. It's like, I would clap for this for my whole life. It's a great example too, where you see something right on the music, bum, 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 bum. And then as opposed to being old and antiquated, all of a sudden you get this big grand rondeggiant that slows everything down. So your eye is used to seeing something, oh, they're doing something on the note, he's trying to get her to look at him. Oh, look at that, isn't that cute? And then all of a sudden out of nowhere you get this sort of incredible looking grand rondeggiant that's so slow, and they're waiting for the last moment, and then she goes, whips around, and then she goes to the other side, and all of a sudden they're back to the kind of cute stuff. But your eye is being like thrown back and forth in this whole pas de deux between things that you seem, that you think are very sort of old world and sort of, I don't know, antiquated is the word that keeps coming up. And then all of a sudden he throws in these syncopations that kind of make you look for something else. Thank you very much. We'll see you again. Okay, so this is the intermission, so, no, I'm just kidding. The opening the second half of the program is a ballet called Neverwhere, which actually was kind of the crux piece for me. It was the first thing that I had decided that I wanted on the program this year. The choreography was by Benjamin Millepied, which he did 2 years ago for the Fall Gala at the New York City Ballet. And it went one time, it threw me for a loop. It went one time, and then immediately the night afterwards, I had to dance the full-length Swan Lake with Tess Reichlin. And I remember the day before having to do I think that we did our Swan Lake complete right before it was just a really crazy week. And then it wasn't programmed again at all. I was thinking, oh, this is terrible, because I thought it was a really wonderful ballet. Lo and behold, scheduling changes at the New York City Ballet, and we actually got to perform this 4 times this past season. But in full disclosure, this ballet came originally with these really fantastic costumes that were covered with shards of plastic, shards of hard plastic, the entire thing. We have the scars, Sterling and I and the other cast members have the scars to show you. And for many reasons, we decided not to have those costumes. But for one, it's because they hurt. No, 2, the girls had, on top of their point shoes, they had these sort of black boots made out of the plastic. And I don't know if you're all familiar, but the island of Nantucket is very humid. I know you all know that. Point shoes die in humidity. And I didn't want to give anyone stress fractures, so we had to also can the boots. The third thing is that the costumes ended up being so loud. Sterling and I had one big lift in our last pas de deux, and we did the dress rehearsal, and I did this lift, and I could have sworn it was a car crash. I mean, it sounded like a car crash. So then Jared said, my brother actually was joking, when I told him we weren't going to have the costumes, he volunteered to sit in the wings with a sort of plastic drum, and he was going to sort of like beat everything. Very happy that we're having live music for this again. The piece itself is called Drones. Drones and Viola. And it's by Nico Muhly, Benjamin's longtime collaborator. And it's an interesting piece of music. It's very beautiful. I was listening to some tracks removed from the ballet itself, and it's very beautiful. But I find that, and I think that the musicians agreed, that with the dance, it becomes more. That this is one of those pieces that you start to feel that there are many more layers to the music when the dance is being done with it. You hear more things, you get more texture. And this, unlike everything else that we've seen, so like to do a recap, back here. We first saw with Emery's piece, we saw, generally we saw choreography that was very tied to just the meter of the music. And then we moved on to the Brahms, and we saw Balanchine really being involved with the melodic lines, with the meter, with the syncopations at the end of the bars. I mean, he's really doing everything. Moving on to Flower Festival, where we kind of think that it's simple and very overt, and then all of a sudden he's sort of like subverting our ear and our eye with all of these little end of the phrase tricks. Neverwhere is the first thing on the program where the music is it's called Drones and Viola. So at any given time, you're either going to have the viola playing one sustained note the entire time. She has very toned arms. And then Susan will be coming in with the melody line, or vice versa. You'll have Susan doing the drones and Isha coming in with the melody line. It was amazing. Yesterday we were doing a rehearsal and Susan looked up at me and we were trying to get some of the cues right, and she said, I just don't know whether to count, to like play the music that's on the page, or whether I should watch you and do it there, because she said they're not always in the same place. I said, I can sort of feel you. This is the first piece on the program that the musicality is very, very sort of open-ended in a way. And I think one of the best examples of that is the pas de deux for Craig Hall and Indiana Woodward. They're prepped. And actually, let me ask Craig a quick question. Thank you. Okay, I think we should see it first, and then I'll talk about it. Thank you. So you hear in the beginning that Isha starts with the drone, and all of a sudden they start moving, and we hear Susan's piano phrase. And then they finish, what your first finish is we hear piano, 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 pirouette, finish. And then Susan has stopped playing, and all we're hearing is the drone again. and then in a sort of unspecified amount of time that they just sort of had to start feeling with one another, musicians and dancers, then they start moving for the second phrase, and the third phrase, and so on and so forth. Do you want to talk a little bit about what... There's a sort of interesting thing, because bodies are fickle instruments, and depending on whether you're tired, or whether you're not warmed up, or whether you're sick, or whether you feel amazing, music can sound fast or slow, or right or not right. Do you want to talk about how you come to know what each phrase of dancing should feel like in time?
I think for me it's about the breath. So we're doing the movement, breathe, 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 and when the music stops, that's when we hold our breath. So by the end, I'm exhausted because I'm going and every time.
Have you ever considered doing the opposite, breathing in the pauses?
Maybe I'll try it tonight.
Indiana too is actually, this is the first time that she will have done this ballet, and actually it's her first time working with Craig Hall. So I think you're in for a treat. Thank you guys very much. Yeah, I mean, this lift, just like that. Do you remember seeing that anywhere? Anybody with... It's also, they do it in Don Q a lot. But it's interesting because somehow for me, when this comes, because again, it's the same sort of like twinkly piano music, you don't know what she's doing, she's going like this, and all of a sudden, what? How? She got up there. Whereas in something like Don Q, it's like the music builds, they're coming out, they sort of like prep, and then they go up into the lift. I think that this is sort of a, like, anyway, it's not a trick, but it's sort of a way to use the music to add more surprise to something that the audience may have seen before. So this is sort of the reason I think I ended up picking the Bach for the program, sorry to go way back to the beginning, is because, like I said, this was my first idea to start, and then the Bach was sort of the counterpart to this. Whereas in this, we're seeing a wide musicality, a range of, a range of pause and a lot of play between the musicians, whereas the Bach is so structured, and we just have to know that, you know, Susan will start playing, and she's going to play the piece, and we're just going to be dancing with her. We're not really tailoring it to our needs at all. The finale of, do you remember the finale of the Capriccio? Where I said that the music was very, very complicated, but we are just dancing with the meters, so we're kind of going over these things and just dancing in fours and not really counting so much. This is like the polar opposite. The music seems to be very simple, but like, you have no idea how difficult it is to count. And I'm gonna see if we probably also need a little more rehearsal in this too, so if I can bring everybody out for the finale. Oh, you walk out, don't you? You don't have to walk out, yeah, from the beginning. And wait, can you just play the first bit on your own? So. Okay, and so that's a quick tempo, but if we can do that again, I'm actually going to count with you. So if you all were ballet dancers, you would hear this music, and you would probably start 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Did you notice how when we started, Ija was playing on the, like the ones and the threes, and then all of a sudden she was on like a 4 and an 8, and it changed from odd to even. And even though the music is very simple when you're not counting it, when you're trying to get 4 people to do things at the same time or different times with this music playing, it happens and sometimes it doesn't. So this is why we're going to try it right now. Yeah, maybe a tiny bit slower. That was awesome. Thank you all very much. And actually, running around was Joe Gordon, who was also in the cast of Maybe. So where it gets really confusing, and I'll even say that it's been clearer. I can say this because I'm not in this part. I get to run after all of the complicated stuff is done. They're coming around the end here, and this is when the viola and the piano really start. I mean, like, the difference between the bars gets very slim then, and it's almost like you're echoing. It's like we start and she's on the bar, and then she's on the offbeat, and then she's on the middle beats, and right when they're doing the most complicated thing, which is 4 of them in a line, which the one here and the one here are supposed to be down, and the one here and the one here are supposed to be up, is when the music is getting sort of the most different. Do you want to try to, do you want to see that again? Let's see that again, I want to. Is there any place that we can go from the top? Okay, we're going to do it from the top one more time. Did any of you try to count? Thank you very much for doing that again. Did any of you try to count any of the 8s? Was anyone successful? No? It's difficult. Thanks very much. There's actually another. I mean, if we think that's difficult, can you just do the beginning of like the girls' dance? So here's a really exciting, again, the concept is very simple, and then all of a sudden, it's like, really, Nico? Did you really have to do this? Thank you. So, did you hear? It's like an echo. They're playing the same line of music, and it's echoed. So what do we count? Do we count the viola, which is the first thing that we hear? Do we count the piano, which is coming in? And there are 2 dances to that music. So just think about that when we're on the stage. That the fact that you can sit in the house right now and think that, oh, it's very pretty. Look, it sounds like there's a little echo. And we're on the stage being like, there's an echo. What do I count? So that's great. And also, this is the first example in the program where you're having a composer and a choreographer working together on the music. They spoke at length about what different pieces were going to go together, and he even tailored some of the bars to what we needed, which is very fascinating, and to me always breeds really wonderful, wonderful results. Along the same line, the next thing that we have on our program is, you guys can come out. In addition to recently being promoted to principal dancer at ABT and recently getting married, she also is the Annenberg Grant recipient, yes? For this?
I have another one here too. Calvin got it for the next cycle.
Oh, that's excellent. So do you want to explain what that is, actually?
Sure. Hi. So the Annenberg Grant is this really awesome fellowship grant that they give to young up-and-coming artists, and basically you get a chunk of money, a pretty considerable amount, that you can use for, I guess, furthering your dance education or outside projects. So this year I've gotten to do some really cool things with it, like I took acting lessons, which was really helpful for a lot of the full-length ballets that we do. And James and I did 2 new creations, one with this choreographer Justin Peck from New York City Ballet, and the other one you will see a preview of here with the amazing Swedish choreographer Pontus Lidberg. So yeah, it's been really cool.
I mean, She's really wonderful too. I mean, we talked because I wanted them to come do Flower Festival, and then she said, well, I'm working on this great project with this great choreographer. Would you be interested in having us sort of come, so we're here and we're workshopping this. What you're gonna see, very special, is just a preview of a piece that's gonna get his, actual premiere in New York, I think at Fall for Dance. So you're gonna see this before anybody else. You're gonna see it in the process. I mean, you were creating this yesterday, probably even this afternoon at 3. I mean, this is brand spanking new, people. Also, because we're sort of on this how choreographers respond to the music, Pontus has a very interesting story about how this, which is a commissioned score, came about. So I'll let him talk to you about that for a bit.
So I'm working with a Swedish composer called Stefan Levin, and he's written pieces for Johan Inger, another Swedish choreographer who was the artistic director of the Kåberg Ballet for a while. And he gave me 2 sketches, one kind of slow, a little bit melancholic cello theme, and then a quicker violin theme, very effervescent. And I liked them both, but I didn't like them enough. And then the cello theme is in slow 4s and the violin theme is in fast 8s. And then I just thought, what if I play one on my iPod and the other on the computer at the same time? Because I had this feeling that this is going to go well together, because it turns the fast 8s into 6s, so it becomes 6s on 4s. So I asked him to do that, so he did, and he put it together. It's still a sketch. The final form is not there yet, and it's sampled. It's going to be recorded. At Fall for Dance it will be live musicians, but it'll be recorded also for violin, cello, and electronics. But right now it sounds a little weird because it's a sampled sound.
I think it sounds wonderful, actually. He's selling himself short a little bit. He's an exceptional musician as well, so I think being able to sort of listen to these 2 things and then go back to the composer and say, I think you should put them on top of one another and see what we get, is really exceptional. I think also what's nice is that we see, I mean, I know, because I know his history and I know his work, that he's an exceptionally gifted musician as well. So it's interesting to me to watch someone who knows absolutely what's happening in his ear. Like he said, he's talking intricately about the meters and how they overlap. What we see in the beginning is more, it's constant movement with the music. I don't think, are you counting in the beginning?
Not as,
no.
I like watching. And then there's the musical cues that I recognize.
So, even though it's technical, even though we've got these meters, even though all these things are happening, we're seeing sort of like a wash over, and then something very fun happens, and they're going to dance up until something very fun happens. Yeah. seeing that for the first time ever right now. So did you notice, in the beginning, they're over the music, over the music, over the music, over the music, and you're probably not really aware of a beat or anything like that, and then all of a sudden, James' breakout dance move does a fouette, and they immediately go in canon, and then all of a sudden, it's like your ear is drawn to whatever they're doing. I like that. I like that part. I'm glad you saw it. Thank you both very much. I don't know how many of you came to see the Pontus's film, The Rain, that we screened at the library on Wednesday. But he spoke about the one thing that he misses working with films and working on the stage is that he cannot direct, you can't be super in charge of what the audience is looking at. They're allowed to look at whatever they want. But here's an example of someone using musicality, someone using the different facets of the music to immediately show, and even in the music, show what you want to hear. As soon as they start the canon, like I said, all of a sudden you feel the beat, you're watching one, then you're watching the other, and I think it's really wonderful. Finishing the program, I know, I'm getting like the time. I love this stuff all too much. The end of the program is Teresa Reichland and Calvin Royal III. Where are you guys? They left. Oh, no, they're here. And all 5 musicians, so we finished with the sort of biggest number, dancing for the first time together on the stage. They look wonderful together as well, I have to say. Justin Peck's Pas de Furien, which is the scherzo movement from Dvorak's piano quintet. I only have one note in my book for the piano quintet, and I have an Italian friend who always says this about things, and I think it's the most charming phrase. She says, things are rather magic. And this entire, the music is rather magic, the pas de deux is rather magic. I mean, everything about it I think is really stunning. I don't even think enough can be said about the piece of music. It's like, you look up quintet in the dictionary and this music is there. And I'm also a total sap. Dvorak gets me every time. It's like these melodies are to die for. And I'm actually going to have them show you the piece of music that I really wish that I had written. I know. So we're going to go from the sort of cascade down into the triplet section. And Justin's very interesting. Justin works a lot in the studio by himself, learning the steps, getting the ins and out of the steps. And I remember the first time that I saw this, I saw some things that to me looked like they would be very uncoordinated, and yet somehow looked very beautiful and interesting. And I was seeing things and steps and directions that I otherwise wouldn't, my body wouldn't want to go necessarily, but it seemed very natural with the music. So I think as you're watching, does that seem like, yeah, okay. So just keep that in mind when you're watching this. But really, this ballet needs no explanation. This is sort of just like a little treat before the performance. Are you fine with directly on the sort of falling down? Yeah. much. I don't need to worry too much. Yeah, I just wanted you to hear. So what they played right there at the end is actually how the piece starts, and then it moves into this second section, and then it comes back at the end. Thank you very much. I can't say any more because I want to use time for any questions at all, or maybe not. No? Okay, maybe I have like 2 or 3 questions because we have to start our dress rehearsal. Does anybody? Wait, thank you again to the music. Thank you for being here. So, some quick, anything quick? Otherwise we gotta pack up shop. I mean, I probably covered it. I talked for a long time. Thanks. Dave, did you want to say something? So Dave Blowers from Northern Trust.
Thank you, Tyler. Wow, that was just unbelievable. Everyone has always talked about how this particular session of the Dance Festival is such a special moment, and it truly is. Now, having been here, I definitely get it. And Tyler, you are amazing. You are a true Renaissance man. It felt a little bit like a chorus line meets a Chautauqua lecture series. It was absolutely wonderful. For those of you I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm Dave Blowers. I'm the president of Northern Trust's wealth management business in the East region. And on behalf of all my colleagues who are here, we are just so delighted to be back again as the lead corporate sponsor for this year's Dance Festival. So I was thinking about the week, and Luann and I got here on Saturday, so we've been here a while, enjoying the island. I was thinking about the concept of the company you keep. And we are so honored and privileged to shine by the reflected glory of the organizations that are represented here, starting with the Atheneum, 180 years strong. Next, ABT, who will celebrate, and I'm a trustee of American Ballet Theater, its 75th anniversary this January. So 180 plus 75. New York City Ballet is founded, I think, in 48. So do the math. That's 52 and 14. John, 66. And Northern Trust, who will celebrate its 125th anniversary on August 12th. That totals up to 446 years of excellence, of continuity of service and purpose, and the sticking to the core values. And we're just so delighted to be a part of that. One of the things that I wanted to mention also is that in addition to sponsoring the Dance Festival, last year we introduced the notion of doing something where we could touch the island throughout the year, and we were able to partner with Molly and the Atheneum staff to do a family series, and we are delighted to announce here tonight that we will do that again this year. And it's been a fun way for us to stay connected to the island, and even Bill Busella, who runs our New England business, he was down to spot the Chinese acrobat when she was here in the spring. But it's something we want to do to be able to continue to stay connected to the important work that the Atheneum does. It's work in education, it's work with the Boys and Girls Club, and as a company we do a tremendous amount of work across the country with the Boys and Girls Club. And I will end with just one fun connection between the Boys and Girls Club and dance. There's a dancer in the American Ballet Theater company named Misty Copeland, who is leading a really neat initiative that ABT has called Project Plie to increase the participation of minorities in dance and also in dance audiences. And she was discovered, and as Tyler knows, at the Boys and Girls Club in Los Angeles. And it's really fun to see the Boys and Girls Club here on the island coming together with the Atheneum. The other thing I'm also meant to mention is that tomorrow there will be a special program for the kids at 11 a.m. and it is called Where the Wild Things Are?
Maybe Dancing the Wild
Dance on the Wild Side, that's right. It's a play on Where the Wild Things Are, right? And I've seen some of the things that they have planned, and it's really going to be fun. So for kids, grandkids who want to come out and really rub elbows with world-class talent and with the incredible leadership of Tyler. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the evening and a great weekend. Thank you.